I wonder if there's any soccer fans in here. Football, not football, football, soccer. Yeah, that's what I thought, two people. I can't stand soccer. Keep it in Europe, you know what I mean? Just get it out of here. Just kidding, now I've offended everybody. The biggest event in soccer, is the World Cup, right? The World Cup. And it's played every 4 years, and most recently it was played in 2022 when Argentina beat France on penalty kicks. You anyone watch that? Remember the penalty kicks, just one player, one shot at the goal, one goalie to stop it. That's all it is, a penalty kick. When the ball leaves the kicker's foot, the soccer ball leaves, it travels about 80 miles an hour. Isn't that crazy? 80 miles an hour. And the goal is only 12 yards away from where the player takes a penalty kick. So the goalie essentially has to guess which way to jump as the kicker's kicking it, or he's gonna be too late. So it's really a guess. So I pulled some statistics, and listen to this. The goalie will jump toward the kicker's left corner about 57% of the time. And to the right corner, 41% of the time, and vice versa if it's a left-footed kicker, okay? So 57% of the time, 41% of the time. That's because conventional wisdom will say that the kicker is gonna kick it to the left, he's gonna kick it to the right. It's conventional wisdom. But think about that, just think about this. If you're the kicker, and you know that the goalie's jumping to the left corner 57% of the time, and to the right corner 41% of the time, there is a place to kick it. That makes way more sense than trying to kick it to the left or the right. Did you catch what that is? The goalie stays in the center only 2% of the time. 2%. And yet only 17% of penalty kicks are kicked toward the center. So why is that? If actually, statistically speaking, your best chance of putting the ball in the net is to just kick it right down the center. Why is that? Well, listen to this excerpt from a book. I like this. It's called Think Like a Freak. Get it, Amazon. It sounds pretty interesting. But it says this. It says, picture yourself standing over the ball. You have just mentally committed to aiming it for the center. But wait a minute. What if the goalkeeper doesn't dive? What if for some reason he stays at home and you kick the ball straight into his gut and he saves his country without even having to budge? How pathetic you will seem. Now the keeper is the hero and you must move your family abroad to avoid assassination. It is ugly over there in these soccer stuff. So you reconsider. You think about going the traditional route toward a corner. If the keeper does guess correctly and stops the ball, well, you will have made a valiant effort, even if it was bested by a more valiant one. No, you won't become a hero, but nor will you have to flee the country. So even though all the statistical data will say your best chance is to just kick it in the center, it's your highest success rate, kicking it left or kicking it right, it just feels safer, right? It just feels more comfortable. Because being conventional, it's not as risky. It feels safe. That's why all the soccer players just keep kicking it left or right? But for those who dare to simply overcome all that and just kick the ball right down the center, they are the few who will experience what it feels like to be unconventional. Albert Einstein, he said this, "The world we have made as a result of the level of thinking we have done thus far creates problems we cannot solve at the same level of thinking at which we created them." He was a genius, apparently, but what does that mean? In other words, our current issues and our current problems, they cannot be solved unless we are willing to transcend and try something unconventional, right? Every big problem that has been solved in the course of human history has been done by somebody thinking out of the box and thinking unconventionally, just like kicking it right down the center. So the title of the message today is, you guessed it, Unconventional. Unconventional. Go ahead and turn your Bibles to 2 Kings chapter 5. This is part 9 of our series, God of Miracles, based on the life of the prophet Elisha. We have 3 more weeks, including today, of this series. And today, we're going to be looking about a story. We're going to look at a story about a man named Naaman. Naaman, tomato. No, I think it is Naaman. But anyway, originally I was just going to preach one message about this story, but then I thought to myself, why do that when I could preach 2 messages on this story? Because it's just so good. So this is kind of part 1 of this story on Naaman, verses 1 to 14 today, and next week we're going to look at verses 15 to 27. So let's start. 2 Kings 5, verse 1. Naaman, commander of the army of the king of Syria, was a great man with his master and in high favor, because by him the Lord had given him victory to Syria. He was a mighty man of valor, but he was a leper. Now the Syrians on one of their raids had carried off a little girl from the land of Israel, and she worked in the service of Naaman's wife. She said to her mistress, "Would that my Lord were with the prophet who is in Samaria. He would cure him of leprosy." So Naaman went in and told his Lord, thus and so the girl from the land of Israel. And the king of Syria said, "Go now, and I will send a letter to the king of Israel." Now, before we go on, I want to just take a step back and hopefully you understand just how odd and crazy this story starts. Naaman, he's a mighty man. He's a commander of the army. He's in high favor. And now he's taking suggestions from a nameless slave girl. Did you catch that? Doesn't even have her name. She's a nameless slave girl. This nameless slave girl, nobody, she just suggests that Naaman go to Israel, to a foreign country, to go see a prophet he probably never even heard of, doesn't even know. And Naaman didn't even hesitate to go. Verse 4, so Naaman went in, told his Lord, this and so spoke the girl from the land of Israel. I'm gonna go to Israel to try this. So the commander of the Syrian army is taking suggestions from this nameless slave girl on what to do about his problem. You know what that shows me? Naaman is desperate. He's desperate. He's just taking suggestions from anybody. He doesn't know what else to do, doesn't know who else to turn to. He's run out of options. Everything else he's tried to do has failed. It didn't matter anymore that he was a mighty man of valor. It didn't matter he was in high favor. He was a leper. And he needed to figure this all out. At this point, he's just desperate. And guess what? That's exactly where God wanted him. Desperate. And that's exactly where he wants you. I heard this quote once. It says, God's address is at the end of your rope. God's address is at the end of your rope. If you don't know what else to do, if you don't know who else to turn to, if you've tried just about everything else and nothing has worked, that is right where God wants you to be. At the end of your rope. You're in the right place. If you're desperate, just say, I don't know what else to do, God. I don't know. That is where God wants you to be. So verse 5, so he went, taking with him 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold, and 10 changes of clothing. Sounds like Gwen for a 2-day trip somewhere. Show up at the airline, they weigh the bag. They're like, I'm sorry, it's overweight. Oh, put it in your carry-on. What did you pack? It's 2 days. Anyway, and he brought the letter to the king of Israel, which read, when this letter reaches you, know that I have sent to you Naaman my servant, that you may cure him of his leprosy. And when the king of Israel read the letter, he tore his clothes and said, am I God to kill and to make alive, that this man sends word to me to cure a man of his leprosy? Oh, consider and see how he is seeking a quarrel with me. But when Elisha, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had torn his clothes, he sent to the king saying, "Why have you torn your clothes? Come now to me, that he may know that there is a prophet in Israel." So Naaman came with his horses and chariots and stood at the door of Elisha's house. And Elisha sent a messenger to him saying, "Go and wash in the Jordan 7 times, and your flesh shall be restored, and you shall be clean." But Naaman was angry and went away, saying, "Behold, I thought that he would surely come out to me and stand and call upon the name of the Lord his God and wave his hand over the place and cure the leper. Are not Abana and Pharpar, the rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? Could I not wash in them and be clean?" So he turned and went away in rage. So Naaman's desperate, remember? He wants to be healed. But when he's offered a cure, it becomes evident that though he wants to be cured, he wants to be cured on his own terms. When Naaman shows up on Elisha's doorstep, Elisha doesn't even come out. Instead, he sends a messenger to tell him what to do. But we discover that Naaman, he was expecting somebody, Elisha himself, to come out, wave his hand, and cure him. And then when the messenger, he tells Naaman, "Hey, here's the cure. Here's what to do. Go and wash in the Jordan 7 times and you will be clean." Well, then Naaman gives a list of, more appropriate rivers that he could wash in. Are not Abana and Pharpar, the rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? Could I not wash in them and be clean? Although he was desperate to be cured, he still wanted to be cured on his own terms. Now, before we pile it on this poor guy, Naaman, let's remember, let's just give him a little bit of grace here. This cure wouldn't have made any sense to him. Go and wash in the Jordan. He's a leper. His skin is falling off. If I told you to be cured by going down to the Delaware River and washing yourself because you have a skin disease, you'd be like, "What are you talking about?" Then I'll really be dead. Why would I do that? Yeah. I actually found this thing. It was in one of my books I read to study this. It was in the 1950s, okay? A travel guide actually said this. It says, "Philadelphia drinks its own sewage." No wonder Philly fans are so disgusting. Yeah, us Pittsburgh people don't do that, yeah. Just kidding. There's 3 rivers that are nasty in Pittsburgh. Anyway, both the Delaware and the Schuylkill are indescribably filthy rivers, slimy with industrial and human waste. This is a travel guide. Every day, some 500 million gallons of raw sewage pour into the rivers that are the city's only source of water. Hopefully they fixed the water problem by now, but this was the Jordan River. This was kind of what it was known for back then. In Naaman's view, if he's going to be cured by washing in a river, certainly there were better options than going to the Jordan River, right? So Naaman, he wants to be cured. He's desperate. He even is offered a cure, but he wants to be cured on his terms. I want to be cured on my terms. And other things that he could do seemed to make more sense to him. Well, I could go here. So what does he do? He objects to the cure and turns away in a rage. Sound familiar? See, like Naaman, we object to the cure. Oh, we object to the cure of the gospel. We are given the cure, but we object to it. We object to the gospel. We object to the good news of what Jesus has done for us because we want to be cured on our own terms. And these other things we could do seem to make more sense to us. Wouldn't that work instead? We're constantly objecting. See, like Naaman, we want to be cured, but we just don't like a few things about the cure. We don't like its humiliation. We don't like its simplicity. And we don't like its narrowness. Let's start with humiliation. See, Naaman, he was the commander of the Syrian army. He was a mighty man of valor. Yeah, he was in high favor. He was a man's man, a big deal. So could you imagine when this guy with all these riches, this commander of the army, shows up on Elisha's doorstep, and Elisha won't even come out to meet him himself? And he sends a messenger. He's like, hey, do you know who I am? I'm Naaman, man. I'm no joke. I'm a mighty man. And you send out your messenger to come and tell me what to do? Are you laughing? But you do the same thing. See, when I stand up here and I say things like, you're a broken vessel, you're weak, you contribute nothing, you don't deserve anything, you're a knucklehead, you're not a godly person, you're not a somebody, you're a nobody, or my favorite, you're a mess. I mean, I stand up here and say that all the time. When I say things like that, be honest with yourself. Something in you doesn't really like that. Hey, I'm not that much of a mess. And you wanna know how I know you feel that way? I feel that way. I feel that way too. Just because I say it because I know it's true. That's why I preach it. It doesn't mean I don't struggle with it. It doesn't mean that I think I'm a big deal too, because I do. But I know it's true that I'm not. And it's a struggle for me too, just like it is for you. No one wants to be told that they're nobody and can't do anything. Hey, come to Reach Church. They'll tell you you're a nobody and can't do anything. It's not the best marketing idea. Sorry, Bill, raise the budget. We need more money. I'm going to tell people they're nobody and can't do anything. People love it here. What are you thinking? Because everybody likes to hear that we're somebody. Oh, we can do anything we want if we do more, try harder, and be better. That's what we like to hear. But that's not true. It's not true. Let's be honest. Oh, for people who say, oh, we don't contribute anything to earning God's favor, we spend an awful lot of time trying to live to earn God's favor, trying to be somebody's. We'll spend a lot of time doing that. We don't like the humiliation of the gospel. Don't like it. We also don't like its simplicity. Amen. We don't like it. Amen. Naaman came to be cured. And they say, what do they say? They say, hey, go wash in the Jordan 7 times and you'll be clean. That's it. That's it. That's it. That's it. So simple. Oh, and we don't like that. We don't like that. It seems too easy, too cheap, doesn't it? Just go wash in the That's too cheap. Surely there's more to it than that. There's got to be more to it than that. I mean, think about it. No doubt Naaman tried and heard a lot of other things about what to do to cure his disease. He probably tried a lot of things. He was clearly willing to try. He brought all of these things to buy treatment. That's why he brought them. He tried all these things, and he shows up in Israel, and they say, just go wash in our river. What? It's too easy. It's too cheap. Nothing but Jesus? Amen. Really? Amen. I mean, surely there's more to it than that. Well, Jesus plus, Jesus and, surely there's more to it than that. We don't like the simplicity of the gospel, do we? Makes us uncomfortable. Now, before we go on, I want to take a little side trail and teach you something really important. Is that okay? Teach you. This is important, okay? Romans 1:16. You probably have heard the verse before if you've been around here long. For I am not ashamed of the gospel, for it's the power of God for salvation to everyone who believes. So we've been talking about the gospel, which is simply just the good news of what Jesus has done for us. That's the gospel. And this verse in Romans tells us what the gospel is for. What's it for? The gospel is for salvation. You see that? That's what it's for. The gospel's for salvation. Now, if you grew up in the church, been around in Christian circles for some time, you likely associate the word salvation with, praying a prayer, raising your hand, coming to Jesus. That's salvation. And that's true, but that's just part of salvation. The word salvation is a past, present, and future tense, meaning that we have been saved from the foundation of the world. We were adopted as sons. That's what Ephesians says. From the foundation of the world. So we have been saved. We are saved right now. And we are being saved. It's past, present, and future. Now, we are being saved. What does that mean? Well, don't overcomplicate it yet. Are you in glory yet? No, and if somebody is, get the ER card or something. We're not in glory yet. Right? We're not. We haven't gotten there yet, so we are being saved. Now, this is important, though. We are being saved doesn't mean that you have to make sure you're keeping it. You can't lose your salvation, okay? You can't lose it. Romans 8:30, it says, "And those whom he predestined, he also called. Those whom he called, he also justified. Those whom he justified, he also glorified." You can't lose your salvation. Nobody drops off the progression. You don't have to live scared and think, "Oh, I hope I didn't lose it today." No, God has taken you all the way to the shore. What he started, he finishes. You can't lose it. You can't lose it. But you're still being saved. You're still in process of being saved. So here's the point. Ready? If salvation is a process that we go through until we reach glory, and the gospel is the power of God for salvation, that means that we need the gospel through the whole process. The whole thing. From start to finish, it's the gospel. And listen, it's the same gospel through the whole process. It's the same. The gospel doesn't change. It doesn't alter. It doesn't adapt. As we go along, our need for it doesn't decrease. I need less gospel now. No, it's the same. We need the same gospel through the whole process. I think most of us are good with a simple message when we want people to come to Jesus. Oh, we're good with, it's simple. But we don't like a simple message for Christians staying with Jesus. Why do we do this? You minister into someone, just believe with your mouth, confess with your mouth, believe in your heart that Jesus is Lord and you will be saved. It's so simple. And then they become Christians and you're like, okay, now that you're a Christian, here we go. Button down the hatches, baby. I got a lot to tell you. We overcomplicate this thing. Why? It's like, why? Well, what do I need to do to be cured? Somebody says, well, what do I need to do to be cured? And everyone says, hey, go wash in the Jordan and you'll be clean. It's simple. What do I need to do to be cured? Just confess Jesus, believe. Most of us like that simplicity, believe it when we come to Jesus. Oh, but then we'll start asking, but now that I am cured, now what do I need to do? It's the same simple thing to do when you first came to Jesus, because it's the same gospel through the whole process. Now that I'm cured, what do I need to do? It's the same answer. Go and wash in the Jordan and you'll be clean. Over and over again. It's the same. You don't need to do anything different. Here you go, ready? Here's what you need to do. Just keep bathing in the river of God's grace. Just keep bathing in it. Enjoy the bath. Enjoy it. My kids love the bath. They stay in there for hours just playing and whatever. They love the bath. Man, I love the bath. I just love it. I love bathing in the river of God's grace. And that's all you have to do. Just keep bathing in the river of God's grace. You don't need to do anything different. If you're more theologically inclined, I'll give it to you this way. Your sanctification, your life as a believer, your sanctification, it's just as simple as your justification, because it's the same gospel through the whole process. Nothing changed. Living the Christian life is just as simple as when you came into it. It's just as simple, just as simple. Oh, but we come to Jesus and we make it all complicated. Why? It's supposed to be simple. He came to give us rest. It's simple. Oh, but we don't like that. Oh, seems too cheap, seems too easy. Surely there's something more to it. But listen, church, that's it. That is it. What's life about as a Christian? Just keep bathing in the river of God's grace. Keep bathing in it. We don't like the humiliation of the gospel. We don't like the simplicity of the gospel. And we don't like the narrowness of the gospel. Hey, are not Abana and Pharpar, the rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? Could I not wash in them and be clean? So he turned away and went in a rage. Only the Jordan River provided the cure. Only that. Not the rivers of Damascus. Once again, I think we're all good with narrowness when people come to Jesus, when we first come to Jesus, right? I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but through me. There is no other name under heaven by which we might be saved. We love the narrowness, and we're all into the narrowness of the gospel when we start. But then as we live the Christian life, it's so easy to drift away from the narrowness of the gospel in our message, in our efforts, and in our focus. And while we don't become, we believe we can just, get to heaven anyway, certainly not. But we do start to depart from the gospel as we live our Christian lives. And what started to be so narrow, all of a sudden starts to become very broad. Rather than simply bathing in the river of God's grace, that's all you gotta do. Because it's the only river that will actually change you and heal you and transform you and make you like Jesus. That's the only thing that does it. We are constantly drawn away to wash in the rivers of Damascus. Oh, because they make more sense to us for some reason. So we go washing in the river of morality. You'll wash in the river of justifying ourselves. You'll wash in the river of piety, virtue, self-justification. Because we're always continually drawn to the cleaner looking, better sounding rivers. That sounds good. That sounds good. Maybe I'll try that now for a little bit. Always. But it's only by bathing in one river, just one. And hey, that river's a little messy. It's a little dirty. It's a little slimy. And it doesn't make as much sense to us, but it is the only river that can cure you, that can bathe you, that can heal you. There's only one. There's still only one river, still. See, just like Naaman, we don't like the humiliation of the gospel because we'd rather exalt ourselves. We would. We don't like the simplicity of the gospel because we'd rather make it more complicated. And we don't like the narrowness of the gospel because we'd rather start to try other things that sound better and look a little more promising, cleaner. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've seen this in the life of Christians. This was me too. I mean, I'm talking here from personal experience. When we first get the gospel, we start in humility. We're humbled. But then as we live it out, for some reason, we start becoming egocentric and proud. Well, when we first get the gospel, we start with a simple, gracious faith. But as we live it out, it becomes more complicated, more demanding. When we first get the gospel, we start with a narrow faith, but then as we live it out, it becomes broader and broader with more and more things that we feel like we have to do, more and more things we feel like we have to debate, more and more things, more and more standards we feel like we have to meet. And it's all because me, you, we all struggle with the gospel through this whole process of salvation. We all do. It is the power of God for salvation, but our human nature, we don't like it. Amen. We don't like it because it's unconventional. It's unconventional. Remember that whole thing about why soccer players don't just kick it right down the middle, the goal? Remember, it makes just kick it in the middle of the goal. Don't think about it, just kick it right down the center. Well, I think that's a picture of why we tend to veer off the gospel. Let me read that again. Picture yourself standing over the ball. You've just mentally committed to aiming for the center. In other words, we'll say you've just committed to living in the gospel. But wait a minute. What if the goalkeeper doesn't dive? What if for some reason he stays at home and you kick the ball right into his gut? How pathetic I'll seem. So then we start to reconsider. Well, surely it's not that easy. Sure. No, it's got to be something else. I got to try something else. That's not going to work. See, that's why soccer players don't kick the ball down the center. And it's also why we tend to veer off the gospel, because we're afraid of humiliation, and we're afraid of simplicity, and we're afraid of narrowness. We're afraid of it. So then we start thinking, maybe I'll just go the traditional route. I'll just do more, try harder, and be better. That sounds more easier, and we'll just keep kicking it and I'll just kick it toward a corner. If the keeper does guess correctly and stops the ball, well, at least I made an effort then. At least I made an effort. See, at least we go down a conventional route of do more, try harder, be better. We can say, I made a valiant effort, but that's not the gospel. It's not. The gospel is unconventional. I love this quote. It says, wash in the Jordan and be cured of leprosy. What a preposterous idea. I can't think of anything more ridiculous. Well, maybe one thing is more ridiculous. The idea that putting your trust and faith in a man executed on a cross almost 2,000 years ago can give you a renewed life now, forgiveness from sin, resurrection from the dead, and eternal life. Now that beats all. For I am not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God for salvation to everyone who believes. I'm not ashamed of the gospel because I've seen it. I've experienced it for myself. And only the gospel. I've tried other stuff. I've tried all the other things that I've named here. I've bathed in other rivers. I've tried to justify myself. I've tried morality. I've tried piety. I've tried all of it. And I'm telling you from personal experience, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And if you're honest with yourself, you know it doesn't work. And you've seen how frustrated people get because it doesn't work. People leave because it doesn't work. They walked away from the faith because it doesn't work. That way doesn't work. Doesn't work. I'm not ashamed of the gospel because I've seen and experienced it for myself. It's only the gospel from start to finish. That's all there is. And church, it's the same gospel through the whole process. Through the whole thing, it's the same gospel. John Piper, he said, you never outgrow your need for the gospel. You never graduate to a course where the gospel should not be the center of the curriculum. There's no post-gospel graduate school in the Christian life. The center of every ongoing growth in knowledge has Christ crucified, risen, received by faith alone like a little child at the center of the curriculum. It's all there is. It's all there is. If you've been to this church for 30 years, or this is your first Sunday, I want to tell you something right now. This is an unconventional church led by a very unconventional pastor. Sorry. That's it. Because no matter the pressures that come, no matter how many people tell me how crazy I am, nothing but Jesus. Yeah, right, man. No matter how many people tell me how crazy I am, even if some people start saying, okay, man, I've heard enough about the whole gospel thing. Can we move on to something else? No. No. No, never, ever. I won't do it. Get another pastor, I'll never do it. I won't ever do it. Sometimes my stubbornness gets me into trouble. Just ask my wife. I can be a really stubborn guy. But in this case, my stubbornness is a spiritual gift from God. I'm not ever departing from it, ever. And if I do, you better say, get back on the gospel train, buddy, because that's the train I want to be on. I hope it's the train you all want to be on, because there's no other train. All the other trains ain't gone anywhere. They're not going anywhere. Nowhere. I'm going to keep doing? Every single time, I'm just going to keep kicking the ball right down the center. Every single time. It's crazy. But maybe it's not so crazy. This is the only thing that works. And if we start to, I don't know if it's working anymore. I don't know if it's working. Maybe we should start being more conventional and start kicking it left and kicking it right. I don't know if it's not working anymore. Even when you can't see it, it's working. It's the power of God for salvation to everyone who believes. Even when you can't see it, it is working. It's working. It's working. The gospel is the power of God for salvation, and it's so unconventional. It's unconventional. And I know, people might leave the church because of it. I know. It's frustrating. It's very frustrating. You might leave. You won't come back. I'll be criticized, and guess what? You'll be criticized for just living in freedom or living in grace. You'll be criticized. Why? Because it's so unconventional. And being unconventional makes people feel uncomfortable. People don't like humiliation. They don't like simplicity. They don't like narrowness. They'd rather be conventional. They want to kick it left or right. And Naaman did it, other people do it. You'll do it. You will resist the humiliation, simplicity, and narrowness of the gospel. So much so, listen, so much so that you will even question if it's true or not. You will. I have. You'll question, is this too good to be true? You say, is this really it? Pastor Tyler, it's just too good to be true. Is it really true? Is it really true? Yes. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I've never been more convinced of anything else in my entire life. It's all true. It's all true. There's no catch-22. There's no fine print. There's no caveats. There's no next step. There's no catch. It's all true, church. It's all true. All of it. It's nothing but Jesus. It's all true. I love how the story ends. It says, but his servants came near to him and said, my father, it is a great word the prophet has spoken to you. Will you not do it? And look what they said. Has he actually said to you, wash and be clean? So he went down and dipped himself 7 times in the Jordan, according to the word of the man of God. And his flesh was restored like the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. It's true. It's true. His servant said, wait, he said wash and be clean? He said it? It's true. It's true. Go and do it. Go and bathe in the Jordan. Go, Naaman, go do it. And it was all true. Naaman was cured. He was made clean. Church, nothing but Jesus is so true. And when you question it, you come back here every week and be reminded that it's all true. That's what I'm gonna preach every week, because you need to be reminded every week that it's all true. I need to be reminded every week that it's all true. Is it too good to be true? Yes. Yes, it is too good to be true. But it is. All of it. Every single word. All of it. All of it. Come on, all of it's true. Isn't that good news? Jesus said it's good news. It's good news. It's good news. So here's the application part of the message. Y'all ready? Y'all ready for the application? What do I need to do? We're gonna sing what you need to do. Just keep bathing in the river of God's grace. Keep bathing in it. It's so good. How good it is to be washed in the water. Just keep bathing in the river of God's grace and watch God transform you, transform your life, transform your relationships, transform this church, transform this community, transform the world through the inside out. Because it's all true. How good, oh, how good it is.